I know you love the song Linda. If you're Linda, enjoy special someone from Sarkodie, Burna Boy and AKA. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Goes out to you, Linda and Natalia Ando. Natalia and Linda, you love a song, and it goes out to you. And wonderful good afternoon going out to you, my brother KK Odadie Kwapong. How you doing, Kwabena Kwapong of Ghana Gas? Have a great afternoon. Our drive time is proudly brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go, Dettol, shield your family from germs. Auntie Mary's Grab Water, a relieved child is a happy child. You know, carrying multiple phones around can be such a chore. The unsightly bulge in your pocket, the extra weight in your purse, the stress of switching from one phone to the other to pick calls. Now imagine being able to switch between different numbers on the same phone easily and seamlessly. But guess what? You can go seamless with MTN eSIM and enjoy the convenience of connecting multiple phone numbers to one single phone or device. To check if your device is compatible, simply dial *#06#. Once you receive an EID number, it means that your phone is compatible. Simply download my MTN app today to request your MTN eSIM and enjoy the sweet, seamless life everywhere you go. Lifetime on Joy with Lexis Bill. It's another wonderful Wednesday where we get to speak to the Drive Doctor. Dr. Yaw Osafo is the CEO of Medicars Hospital. So 25th of April is World Malaria Day. The world celebrated World Malaria Day, or should I say observed World Malaria Day. It's an occasion to highlight the need for continued investment and sustained political commitment for malaria prevention and control. And so we thought, look, we needed to have a conversation about malaria. And of course, the doctor, Dr. Yaw Osafo, is here with us. He's on our Zoom platform. Hello, Doc. Can you hear me? Hello, Doc. Can you hear me?
I hope you can hear me too.
Hello, Doc. You sound very low.
Yes, Kwame, I can hear you.
Okay. You sound a little muffled.
Kwame, if I sound very low, then
you sound a bit.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. I think it's a lot better now. Yeah. How are you, Doc?
Okay. All right. Kwame, a little under the weather, suffering the exertions from last Friday night.
You had too much fun at the Presec bonfire, huh?
Kwame, it was supposed to be a coded message. Now you decoded the message for everybody.
I had to. I totally had to.
Yeah, too bad I couldn't join you in the studio, but yes, I am happy to be here for us to talk about malaria.
Before we talk about malaria,
so,
since you are under the weather, on behalf of my team of expert doctors, we want to prescribe something for you.
Is Philip part?
No, Philip is not part. He's not passed the exam yet.
Okay. Because if Philip was part, then I was just going to flatly refuse whatever you have on offer.
Well, this is from my office, from my doctor's desk. So, since you're a little under the weather, you need to prepare some ginger, hwentia, with prekese, add Milo. And
hey, sir.
Yeah, yes. And buy tea bread. Anyway,
tea
Doc,
bread.
Let's talk about malaria now, and we hope you get well soon, actually.
All right, thank you, Kwame. I'm sure. Thank you, and I'm sure I will be back up and be able to join you next week in studio. Right, Kwame, when it comes to malaria, then everybody is an expert in Ghana. Everybody becomes an expert in malaria. So it's one of those things where we are very careful as doctors, because my grandmother knows everything about malaria. supposedly. My mother knows everything about malaria. They are all professors of malaria. So it is sometimes very difficult to convince people either that they do not have malaria or the severe form of it. So yesterday, 25th April, marked World Malaria Day. And as you rightly mentioned, it is an occasion to highlight the need for continued investment and sustained political commitment for malaria prevention. So what I've decided to do today is to discuss the frequently asked questions, the questions most people ask about me, or the areas of controversy, and I have classified some of them even as myths and misconceptions that we have about malaria. But before that, Kwame, let me share the theme for this year. It says, quote, time to deliver zero malaria, invest, innovate, implement.
Right.
Time to deliver zero malaria, invest, innovate, and implement. So the 3 I's. But the main focus is going to be the implementation strategies. I think that's where the world is falling back, and governments, sometimes understandably because of the convergence of diseases like COVID, Ebola, the budgets of most governments, particularly those in sub-Saharan Africa. Let's now look at some of the key facts. I'm going to share some sobering facts about malaria. In 2021, 619,000 malaria deaths were recorded globally.
Wow.
Kwame, if you can recall the deaths we had globally from COVID, for example, then we are in COVID territory, and COVID brought the world to its knees. We had to stop almost everything and focus on that particular pandemic. We declared it a pandemic. But malaria is throwing up similar numbers, 619,000 malaria deaths in 2021. But I dare say our response globally has not been anywhere near what the response has been for say, COVID. Fact number 2, nearly 80% of all the above deaths occur in the Africa region. So the WHO splits up the world into regions for administrative purposes. So our region, Ghana, we are in what we call the Afro region. So Kwame, nearly 80% of the 619,000, and Philip can work the math for us, occurred in the WHO Afro region. And this is what breaks my heart. Among children under 5, you had this huge number. That 80% were among children under the age of 5 years. Kwame, so children have their whole lives in front of them. And anything that, snuffs out the light of a child, really, really breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So fact number 3, 247 million new cases of malaria were recorded in 2021, up from 245 million cases in 2020. So the numbers keep rising.
Hello, Doc. Can you hear us?
Fever, and therefore I have malaria. Lastly, 95% of all malaria cases and 96% of all the deaths occurred in Africa region of the WHO. So we bear the brunt. Africa bears the brunt of malaria. Now, Kwame, let's jump and look at the frequently asked questions. And buried in these questions are the misconceptions and the myths.
Right.
Question number 1.
What is malaria?
Kwame, you want to introduce the questions?
Yeah. What is malaria and how is it transmitted?
Right. So malaria is an acute febrile illness. And Kwame, what we mean by febrile is that you have an elevated body temperature. It is very, very important I make this point. An elevated body temperature is the definition of a fever. In Ghana, we have our own definition. Somebody will tell me that in a consulting that Sammy Johnson a yellow, not a fever. Hey, doctor, me Johnson a fever. Johnson a fever, saying, so a yellow. You know, when they pass very deep or very concentrated urine, then they classify it as a fever. Well, a fever simply means that the individual has an elevated body temperature. And Kwame, the normal body temperature ends at 37.4. So that is the upper limit. If you go beyond 37.4, meaning 37.5 upwards, then we would say you have a febrile illness or ISH. So malaria is an acute. Acute means sudden onset.
Mm-hmm.
Febrile illness caused by a parasite called Plasmodium. And this parasite is spread to people through the bites of the infected female Anopheles mosquito. Female Anopheles mosquito. It is preventable and it is curable. So, Kwame, in a nutshell, if you ask what is malaria, then this is how we would define, or I would define malaria.
So, who is at risk?
And its transmission.
Who is at risk of malaria?
Everyone can be infected by this particular parasite called Plasmodium, the malaria-causing parasite called Plasmodium. Everyone can be affected and then subsequently develop malaria as a result. However, there are vulnerable populations, or what we call the at-risk groups, who are exceptionally vulnerable to developing severe malaria. And Kwame, these are one, infants and children under 5 years. There is a certain level of immunity that we develop in our bodies because we get inoculated, or the malaria parasite gets introduced into our bodies. And then we develop what we call a partial immunity. And if you are an infant, or you have children and infants, their immune system is still developing, and therefore they are not able to mount a very vigorous partial immunity to malaria despite being bitten by the mosquito. So they are the first vulnerable population group. The second group, pregnant women. So pregnancy tends to decrease a woman's immunity. So pregnancy is a good thing. Most people are absolutely delighted when they become pregnant, but physiologically, it adversely affects your immune system. And that is why we have a program to prevent malaria in all pregnant women in Ghana. It's one of the things that we do and do very, very well in this country. The third population group I want to address are the poor and malnourished individuals. So again, when it comes to health, the poor are always marginalized, and malnourished individuals are marginalized in society. Point number 4, the fourth population group, people arriving from non-endemic zones of the world. When we talk about non-endemic zone, then Kwame, we are talking about individuals who live in places where malaria is not common, and also in places where the transmission of malaria is very, very reduced. So, Kwame, if you go and live in the UK, it is not an endemic zone. If you go and live in the United States or in Finland or in Germany, these are all non-endemic parts of the world. And here, this is where I want to correct one of the misconceptions or the myths. Some individuals, Ghanaians, who have emigrated to live in the United States, for example, when they are coming back, they don't go through the same processes that the nationalities from those countries coming to visit us, because they think they are Ghanaian. Oh, me, I grew up in Ghana, and I've been bitten by mosquitoes so many times. Well, the immunity that I talked about earlier lasts 2 years. So if you go out of the jurisdiction, if you go into a non-endemic zone for more than 2 years, you will lose your immunity, such that when you are coming back into this zone, then it would be as if you are like a US national or a Finnish national coming into this country. So that is why people from those countries tend to have very, very, very severe malaria. And lastly, we talk about persons living with HIV, AIDS.
Okay.
So, Kwame, these are the at-risk population.
Okay, let's talk about the symptoms and how it is diagnosed as well. Hello, Doc. Can you hear me?
So today, for example, hello, Kwame.
Yes,
I can hear you.
Yeah, you can go ahead now.
Okay, right. So today, for example, I had to correct one of my clients at the clinic. The first symptoms begin within 10 to 15 days after a bite from an infected female Anopheles mosquito. When you get a bite from an infected, and Kwame, the word is infected, you can get a bite from the Anopheles mosquito male who is non-infected, and you will not expect to develop malaria. So it has to be a mosquito that has the malaria parasites. The first symptoms begin within 10 to 15 days after a bite. Fever, an elevation in body temperature, headaches, chills are typically experienced by most people. But Kwame, this is where I want everybody to stop and listen. Fever, headaches, and chills are not definitive or are not limited to malaria alone. You would have these three symptoms in almost every infectious condition. And there are a host of viral conditions, including COVID-19, that will present with fever. You shouldn't think that once you have a fever, once you have some headaches, once you have chills, then bam, I am suffering malaria, and therefore I need to go and get some anti-malarials to take. In even malaria endemic zones like Ghana and most parts of Africa, some people become infected but will show no symptoms because, Kwame, they have what we call the partial immunity to malaria. So it is possible that they will have malaria parasites in their blood and absolutely don't show the symptoms I've alluded to earlier. In terms of the diagnosis, it is pretty straightforward. Now we have two main types of tests. One involves the use of a microscope, and then the other involves the use of something we call an RDT test kit, which can be performed anywhere in this country with or without electricity. The challenge with the microscope is that you would need electricity to power the microscope, training staff to be able to identify parasites properly. Sometimes it's a challenge, but with the rapid diagnostic test kits, all I need is a few drops of blood onto this test kit with minimal training. Even my grandmother can do it.
All right. Okay. So one of the frequently asked questions is where is malaria most common? I think you touched on it a little earlier, that in the Afro region, about 80% of the cases come from this side of town. Tell me more.
Right. So, Kwame, malaria occurs primarily in tropical and subtropical countries. So every country in Africa, most countries in South America, Southeast Asia, parts of the Mediterranean, all right? The threat of malaria, however, is highest in sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana included. 4 countries in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, accounted for nearly half of all malaria deaths worldwide in 2021. Nigeria, 26.6%, Democratic Republic of Congo, DR Congo,
Hello, Doc. Can you hear me?
in 2021. So It's quite a large number.
Okay. I think we're having some network issues a little earlier, but I can hear you now. Now, is there a vaccine against malaria?
Right. So this is the best news that has come out in the last couple of weeks. But this good news has been building since, I think, 2007, when the initial stages of significant work, what we call the phase 1 trials of vaccine development started. The vaccine is called the RTS vaccine, and it is the first and to date the only vaccine that has demonstrated it can significantly reduce malaria in young children living in places such as Ghana. Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi began in 2019 leading the introduction of the vaccine, what we call the phase 3 trials, and we have successfully completed it. So yes, Kwame, the good news is that now we have a vaccine for malaria.
Wow, that's interesting. Oh, that's some really good news, isn't it?
The vaccine is safe and is very, very effective.
Okay.
As of March 2023, more than 1.3 million children had received at least one dose of the vaccine through this program. So I will encourage all of us as Ghanaians. I had the privilege of being recruited to work on the phase 1 trials back in 2008. So a lot of work has gone into it, and very soon it will form part of the routine vaccination we do for children, so that we can cut down this very horrible number of 86% of that 619,000 number being children under 5.
Okay. No, this has been some really good education in malaria. We're really grateful to you that you shared. Yesterday, the world observed World Malaria Day, and we are doing our bit to also, further the conversation about malaria and hopefully reduce the numbers, the statistics that Doc shared with us. So, Doc, thank you so much. Any final words as we wrap up?
Right. So my final words is a caution to the public. Do not self-administer anti-malaria drugs because you believe your fever, chills, and headaches are a result of malaria. Walk into most clinics and you would get tested for malaria. It would take just some 15 to 20 minutes for this test to be completed. If in doubt, you can reach us, come into Medical's Hospital, call our line 0501 477 340. 0501 477 340. We'll continue the conversation on our social media platforms. Our Twitter handle is at Medical's GH. Our Facebook page is Medical's Hospital. And our Instagram is at Medical's GH. You'll find all this information shared on that platform.
Doc, thank you so much. We're really grateful that you shared this with us. And do have a good day. And hopefully,
you're welcome.
We'll see you next week after you get better, yeah?
Yes, no more chilling for me. I've done it for the year. I'll see you next week.
You lie bad. You lie bad. All right. So that's Dr. Yaw Osafo. He's the CEO of Medical's Hospital, Mampo Ekwapim, and Medina Firestone. Had a very good conversation about malaria. Stay tuned in. This is Joy 99.